Hi everyone, welcome to the visual guide for THORNMARCH Extreme. You asked for it, now you've got it. This is the hardest encounter in Final Fantasy XIV, and once you beat it, you can go right ahead and quit the game because nothing will ever be as stupid. But personal opinions aside, THORNMARCH Extreme is required to unlock future primals, and we might as well get her done. My name is Ms. Tech, and I'll be your dungeon guide. For anyone familiar with the THORNMARCH encounter, we face a buttload of Moogles and Good King Moggle Mog himself. This is a 4-phase fight that can get extremely hectic, so breaking down each mechanic is vital for success. Let's look at what we're dealing with first. We face 7 Moogle guards along with the king, each guard representing a specific class. While you can differentiate them by their colors and weapons, I don't suggest trying to find them out on the battlefield. Instead, your enemy list is your best friend on this fight, so be sure to use it to switch between Moogle targets effectively. The Moogles have an ultimate ability that they will cast throughout the fight in combination with another Moogle's ultimate. Each of these ultimates must be handled accordingly throughout the fight. So, let's look at each Moogle guard in order of difficulty to deal with. The king himself has a frontal cleave that will obliterate the mana of anyone caught in front of him at the time, so tanks be sure to face away from the group at all times. He also has a pretty massive frontal column attack that the raid should avoid. Throughout the fight, he will cast Royal Rouse, an ability that places a stacking buff on any Moogle in his vicinity. This buff will increase the health and the amount of damage that Moogle does, and the tanks need to be mindful of any Moogles that are near the king at any time. The less the king buffs his Moogle friends, the easier time you'll have in destroying them. Along with the king, Whiskerwall and Ruffletuft are the only 2 Moogles that have a threat table, and will each be tanked by your 2 tanks. They periodically cast an overpower ability, a long frontal cone signified by these orange no-no spots. All players should avoid getting hit by these. The warrior's ultimate is Moogle Go Round, an ability that will mark up 2 random players with Bemoogled. Healers need to dispel this debuff before the Moogle Go Round occurs, as it will most likely one-hit kill any non-tank classes. The Paladin's ultimate is Thrown for a Loop, an ability that will taunt and link the 3 closest players to him and eventually mind control them, causing them to walk towards the Paladin, where he has conveniently placed a large green puddle of death poo. These mind controls should be dispelled as soon as possible, as standing in the puddle of death will result in, you guessed it, death. It's also important to note that the healer should avoid standing anywhere near the Paladin Moogle to avoid getting mind controlled. If there are no healers available to dispel, you will most certainly wipe. The rest of the Moogles have no threat table and will wander around the arena casting their specific abilities. Puckla is the black mage of the group. Puckla's ultimate is Palm Flare, a massive AoE blast that could very well lead to a wipe unless it's interrupted. To interrupt Palm Flare, Puckla must be attacked at least 5 times. As soon as you see the massive Palm Flare graphic, DPS need to switch to Puckla until he is interrupted. Puckla will also cast Meteors, 2 sets of massive blue circles on the ground. All players affected need to move out of these as necessary, but be careful not to box yourself in. On this fight, you want to avoid as much unnecessary damage as possible. Furryfoot is the group's white mage. He will wander around healing the other Moogles. Again, no threat table. His ultimate is Holy, an ability that must be interrupted similarly to Puckla's Palm Flare. Letting this ability cast can very well lead to a wipe, so all DPS should switch as soon as he begins to cast. Puckna is the thief of the group and will randomly stab people. His outgoing damage may increase over the course of the fight if he gets buffed by the king, so keep an eye on him. Otherwise, he can be easily ignored. Puxie, the bard, will throw out songs to buff the other Moogles around him and will sometimes do a point-blank AoE. While he has no threat table, do your best to keep him away from the other Moogles. WOOLYWART, the ranger of the group, is arguably the most dangerous Moogle to deal with, especially if he is buffed. He is mainly stationary unless he is winding up to throw out an ability. His main attack is Moogle Eye Shot, which will multi-fire on a single player. Healers be ready to heal through this. The second ability is Mog Rain, an ability that will target a random player and then deal a large AoE to them and anyone around them. To reduce damage, the affected player can run away from any other players. Both of these abilities are almost negligible unless WOOLYWART is buffed. The higher his stacks, the greater the potential to one-hit kill his victims. Tanks need to be especially mindful of WOOLYWART's position at all times, and move if he gets too close. If necessary, mark him up so he's easy to spot, and use Virus on him to decrease the damage Mog Rain deals. The Ranger can also be used as a cue for a few other abilities, like Delta. If you notice WOOLYWART start to move while blabbering about Delta something, it's imperative that all players move out of the center of the arena. WOOLYWART, Puckna, and Puxie will align themselves into a triangle inside the arena and cast Delta. Any player caught inside Delta has a high chance of dying, so players be sure to start moving out of the center when WOOLYWART starts to move. This will happen throughout the entire fight, so all players need to be mindful of delta at all times. Now let's look at how all of these abilities are put together. Starting in Phase 3, we begin to see a variety of ability combos. While the order of each ultimate combo is random, the combos themselves stay the same. Note that the faster you burn down each Moogle phase, the less spicy combos you'll have to deal with overall. The first crazy combo is Holy and Moogle Go Round. Furryfoot will begin to cast Holy and all DPS should switch to him and interrupt the Holy cast. At roughly the same time, Ruffletuft will mark up 2 players to obliterate with Moogle Go Round. Healers need to be ready to dispel this debuff as soon as it pops up. Any player hit by Moogle Go Round becomes a potential candidate for a swift death, so healers be mindful. The second dangerous combo is Mograine and Thrown for a Loop. WOOLYWART will target his victim for Mograine with this crazy colored symbol and eventually slam them with an AoE Rain of Death. That player should attempt to move out of the group and healers be ready for that little bit of extra healing. At the same time, Whiskerwall will taunt the 3 closest players to him and force them to walk into his poison trap. Healers need to be ready to dispel these 3 mind-controlled players before they succumb to the poison poop. All of this is happening while the raid is dodging Delta, Meteors, Overpowers, and the King's Column attack. It may take a little bit of practice to see through the chaos, but if you take each ability combo at a time, you'll be golden. We begin Phase 1 in the middle of the arena and DPS the King down to 90%, at which point he will become invulnerable to damage and call in his Moogle guards. This is where Phase 2 begins. At the beginning of this phase, tanks need to be ready to pick up their respective targets and drag them into position against the outer wall. Each tank should also focus target the other tank Moogle to easily keep an eye out on their stack. At 3 stacks, the tanks will swap the King to ensure that their respective Moogles don't get too high on buffs. The rest of the raid will spread DPS over the rest of the Moogles, slowly burning each one down to about 10% before switching to a new target. Be very careful not to kill any of the Moogles. The basic premise of this fight is simple. The only way that the King will take damage in the first few phases is indirectly through the damage that we deal to the Moogles. Anytime a Moogle dies, the King will use his own health pool to revive and restore the health of any and all Moogles inside the arena. That means the less health each Moogle has, the more of his own health the King will have to use to heal them up. Every DPS needs to be on the lookout for any high health Moogles during each phase. I really wasn't kidding when I said your enemy list will be your best friend on this fight. While you're DPSing all of these Moogles down, you are continuously handling Delta, Meteors, and stopping flares from going off. In this first Moogle phase, you don't have to worry about the crazy combos yet. Once all the Moogles are down as low as possible, pick a target to kill and destroy it. Once that target is killed, the King will revive and heal up his friends, while taking damage equal to how much he needs to heal. This will start Phase 3, where you pretty much do the same thing all over again, all whilst handling the crazy combos they'll try to trip you up with. DPS needs to be on the lookout for flares and Holy, healers need to dispel those debuffs while staying away from the Paladin, tanks will continue to swap the King, and everyone should be mindful of the Meteors, Delta, and other AoEs. There is a lot going on here, so be careful. In this phase, the Moogles will periodically reset aggro, but as long as your tanks are on the ball with their rotations, this should never be a problem. DPS each Moogle down until you have them as low as comfortably possible, and then pick one to kill. Again, the King will sacrifice himself to bring back his friends, but this time he's angry. He will begin to cast Mog Meteor, a massive AoE blast that will destroy anyone at low health. It's important for the whole group to stack in the center of the room and shield and heal through the blast. Phase 4 is again the same as what you've dealt with. Avoid all the things and bring down those Moogles. This time, as soon as you kill a Moogle, the King will get even more upset and begin to cast Moogle Memento. Similar to all other super mad boss ultimate abilities, should this cast go off, you will wipe. This last part of the fight can be handled in a number of ways. You can split your DPS to kill specific Moogles all at the same time and then have everyone focus the King to burn him down, blowing Limit Break 3 on him. Or, if you're comfortable enough with your DPS, you can have a Mage Limit Break 3 immediately to destroy any remaining Moogles and hit the King for a decent amount before everyone burns all of their cooldowns on him. Whatever way that you choose to do it, keep in mind that the King will begin to cast Moogle Memento as soon as the first Moogle dies. So no matter which way you handle this part, be sure to maximize your time DPSing the King himself. Ding dong, the King is dead, and now I never have to step into this horrible fight again. Congratulations on your new necks, and get ready for Ramu in 2.3. As always, thanks for watching. Till next time.